Shalom Yasharala, this is your brother Dawada, coming back at you with this here truth again. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Rakak Patash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, a great millstone that taught us this truth and never will. And salutation and much love for you. I can push this truth and sincerity over the four corners of the earth and endure afflictions to feed and edify the elect. So I want to jump into this here article real quick, which says NATO needs enemies to justify its existence. And this is something that I forgot who it was. Was it might have been JFK that kind of spoke about this with the he gave this here what they call his famous speech. All right, his famous, what they would call his famous last speech, basically the one they talk about that kind of got him off to whatever. But when in that their speech he talked about this military industrial complex. All right, and then I believe there was also another president that spoke about it as well too. But anyway, going into the JFK situation, he was kind of exposing this here thing, and and I believe it was I don't know if it was President Johnson that might have spoke about this, but one of the two said basically going into the issues with this here military industrial complex is more or less like feeding a how do you say like a bottomless pit, or feeding a monster that's just never going to be satisfied. All right, so they talk about creating like a war machine. And if you understood kind of like how this relationship works, you understand that it's like, you can even think about it this way, with, that's not really a good example. I was going to say police and crime, or car insurance and accidents, you know what I mean? Or better yet, car manufacturers and service departments. Car manufacturers, you look back in olden days, you had way more reliable cars. Cars used to last forever. All right. You would see sometimes, even now, you still see cars that's on the road 20, 30, 40 years from now, still on the road and everything else like that. Whereas some cars that's just been made 5, 10 years ago is, no longer running. All right. They have all kind of major problems. Well, with the car industry and things like that, they're like, well, shit, we only sell the car one time. If we make the cars, to where they don't break down and things never go bad, we can't sell these parts. But if, we make them mediocre that you only get about 5 years out of them, you'll continuously buy parts and you'll continuously buy new cars from us, because what the hell are you going to buy a new car for if your car's still up and running 20 years later, man? All right. So, this is in tandem. They need one another to feed its own business. So the same thing here is what's being said here as far as it says NATO needs enemies to justify its existence. All right. And as long as NATO has enemies, all right, they can go out and attack them. Or as long as that NATO or America's going out and attacking that war, guess what's happening? It's one thing if America's just going out by themselves and doing certain things economically wise. But when you have NATO, all right, think about this. NATO has to go out and arm up and everything else like that. Like America has the F-35 program, all right, where, they share plane with a lot of their NATO allies and everything else like that. But guess what? Every time that they sell a we call that F-35 plane, Lockheed Martin makes money. Lockheed Martin is what? An American company. So America is making money off every time there's a bomb dropped, every time there's a bullet spent, all right, every time there's a gun purchased, all right, for the most part, because, hey, for the most part, they use, some of these other countries do have other little rifles and stuff like that, but on a larger scale, they have to make things like you'll see, they'll say NATO rounds. This is uniform that, anywhere throughout the NATO military, you can use this here round for that. All right, you can use this here type of gun for that. It's a so-called stock generic piece. All right, that they make to fit in all of their military units. All right, or all the countries that they have around. All right, so hey, this is what they need this here for, because they need this to continue to go for them to be in a profitable margin. With this military industrial complex. Like I said, you can go back and listen to these speeches, and they'll tell you how they pretty much need a boogeyman to keep up their existence, because if not, there would be there's no so-called threat for these militaries, no use for them. All right, so go and check that out. Speeches on the military industrial complex. But it says having an enemy to fight against is essential for NATO's survival. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko has claimed. The diplomat added that the bloc's expansion is largely motivated by the need to antagonize nations so they can fit the role of an enemy. And then again, like the scriptures say in Habakkuk, he gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. All right, in Isaiah it says he raised up even the chief ones from their thrones. All right, they go into that regime change, all right, and overthrowing governments, all right, and gathering unto him all these different people for what? The resources, all right, just to make a quick example. Look at what happened in the Middle East and Iraq. For the oil fields and everything out there. All right, Afghanistan, the poppy fields and everything else like that, man. All right, this is what they're going out there doing right now. You got Ukraine with this. There's a pipeline that goes through this. So you see how, with the situation with Russia, right, and how it's crippling the economies in Europe because of the energy crisis. America's looking like, well, shit. If they need Russia for this, it's gonna bring them down to their knees. Imagine if we was in position over there, man. All right, now we're gonna reign over top of them. But see, hey, we need to be able to do all these things to how do I say maneuver ourselves into that position. All right. It says NATO is the kind of organization that cannot live without an enemy. If it had none, it would die. It would have died. He was quoted saying by the RIA, by RIA Novosti news agency on Monday. They have declared Asia a zone of the alliance interests, pushed the zone of their defense right to the border of China, he noted. It says Grushko said in the conflict in Ukraine stems from NATO's declaration or declared intentions to eventually accept Kiev as a new member while ignoring Russian national security concerns. The alliance is still trying to bring in Ukraine, he said, adding that it doesn't believe that the U.S. and its allies are acting rationally on the issue. Now, even when you go back to what's his name, General Wesley Clark, I believe his name was, he talked about how, they had a plan to go into, what was it, 7 countries in 5 years or something like that, ending up with Iran. But even before that, you have to understand that Russia and China have always been on their targets, but these targets were way too big, and they need, uh, how do you say, a majority. They need to muster up a lot of people to basically fight up against them, man. All right, so their plan is to, hey, if we can get everybody around them and encompass them and encircle them, then we can make this fight a lot easier. All right, so hey, that's never changed. It says the NATO leadership claimed to have an open door policy, saying that every nation has a sovereign right to choose it as a provider of security. Its charter, you got to ask yourself, security from whom? All right, because you have to understand that this whole NATO was created to stop what do you call it, the USSR. All right, well, the USSR no longer exists. All right, and the USSR, contrary, speaking, how do I say, not spiritually speaking, carnally speaking, the USSR would not even have existed if it wasn't for NATO. All right, but yet and still, like the scriptures say, his own counsel shall bring him down. All right, he's going to lead him to the king of terrors. See, America's own doing with this whole NATO expansion and keep moving closer and closer towards Russia has woken up the bear, rising Russia up, putting them into that defensive mode, bringing them back into that old Soviet state. So, hey, if it wasn't for America doing these things, how do I say, the USSR wouldn't, now it's called the Russian Federation, but going back to that old Soviet state, it wouldn't be popping like that, man. All right, your own doings is brought you out to the border, man. All right, but yet they said that they needed this for to combat with NATO. All right, it says uh It says this charter, however, requires all members to approve any expansion, a fact that came to the forefront after Turkey stalled the ascension of Finland and Sweden to their alleged sheltering of terror over their alleged sheltering of terrorist suspects. All right, and you also have a situation, all right, with what is it, I forgot how they called it, but it was just basically a bomb that went off in Turkey. All right, which come to find out it was from these Kurds. All right, which is the people that America's over there. You know, how you say, backing and stuff like that. Well, they backed them in Syria. All right. It says the U.S.-led military alliance. Well, that's so-called alleged. All right. It says the U.S.-led military alliance declared the inclusion of Ukraine as one of its objectives in 2008. With the Maidan coup. All right, when they went over there and overthrew the government. And this is where this here conflict stems from that you see going on right now. All right. It says dismissing Moscow's warning that such a move will cross a red line. After the 2014 coup in Kiev, the new Ukrainian government dropped the nation's neutrality policy and said that joining NATO was the primary goal. And even there, just not even reading between the lines because it's right there on the forefront of what's going on. All right. So, they'll say that, Russia, let's read the next line because this is the narrative. It says, when Russia sent its troops into Ukraine in February, it cited NATO's clandestine expansion into Ukraine as one of the key reasons. All right, normally they would say, Russia just invaded for no reason, But it says organization members were training and arming Ukrainian army and establishing military infrastructure in the country without formally accepting Kiev's membership bid, Moscow said. So basically, you become a new base, a new training ground for, Russia's enemies. What the whole mission of NATO is what? To, combat the existence of the USSR. Where the USSR is no longer there, but look, you still moving forward onto that, man. All right. It's like, oh, we're doing an investigation on, the police is sitting outside your house doing an investigation on a known drug dealer that lived there and everything else like that. Well, they come to find out they didn't arrested the guy. But guess what? They still doing surveillance on your house. Like, well, who the hell y'all looking for now? Y'all arrested the so-called guy y'all was looking for. Well, now we got, further motives over here, man. All right. But look, all these things is just showing forth that, hey, how the scriptures say to hammer the whole earth. When your only tool, how they also say, when your only tool is a hammer, everything must look like a nail. All right. So, hey, these people need enemies to, how do I say, to give a credence or relevance to why they should even be existed. But financially, on the backside, America make money through, the petrodollar mainly. All right. But then also this military industrial complex. All right. Like I said, it's just like, the court systems and things like that. They need criminals to be out there committing crime, because if there was no crime, they wouldn't have nobody going into the court systems, nobody in the prison systems, nobody for the police to be extracting funds from and everything else like that. So this is a revolving door. All right. But it's also going to bring them down in the end. But let's go ahead and read this in Habakkuk 2:5. It says, yea, also because he transgresses by wine, he is a proud man and neither keepeth at home. All right. And that's exactly what you see. We was reading an article about how in 2008, they went over there in Ukraine and started expanding. All right. Getting all this here stuff to 2014 with the coup. You had them put up their own puppet and everything else like that. So look, this is what they wound up doing. Hey, let's bring in arms over to Ukraine. Same with Taiwan. Same thing is going on in Taiwan. All right. Same thing is going on all over the place, man. All right. But yet and still, America goes around and stir up these little wars and these conflicts for this here reason, man. All right. You would think that in a world, it's like we're trying to go for peace. All right. We're looking for peace and everything. Just like I said, man, like the police in them, man. They don't want a 0% crime rate wherever they get, man. That's not what law enforcement really want, because if they do that, now we got to lay off police officers. Now we got to lay off judges. Now we got to lay off lawyers. Now we got to lay off all these different people and everything else like that. Close down these prisons. All these people are going to be without jobs. So we need y'all to be out here committing crimes so we can keep this here thing going. All right. Same thing with this here military industrial complex, man. All right. Hey, look, we're not going to just shut down Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin. Hey, now we developing some new shit right now. We need a reason to use all this here stuff, man. You think the fact of the matter, they over here developing, $billion fighter jets and everything else like that, to all of a sudden say, you know what? Hey, there ain't no more war. Guess what? We scrapped the program. We ain't gonna never use these planes. We just spent all this money for nothing. We ain't gonna make our money. They need a what they call a ROI, a return on investment. Hey, we've developed the planes. We need these other nations to buy these planes. And why would they buy these planes if there's no threat of war? Why would they buy these guns if there was no threat of war? Why would they sit here and buy it and ask for this here security for us to protect them if there's no threat of war? So we got to stir up a boogeyman. We got to stir up certain things. Again, go back to that Wesley Clark interview. In fact, I did a video on it not too long ago. But, he was speaking about how they said that he used the terminology, if your only tool is a hammer, everything must look like a nail. But he spoke about how, they said they was about to go to war. And he was talking to another general, I believe. And he said, well, why? He was like, I don't know. Maybe because we just got a good military and we need to use it. We need to put it to use somewhere. There's no real threat, nothing really going on. It's like we got to create one. All right. So, hey, again, when you have this here scenario that's going on, they have to sit there and look for something. You see in these small towns, police be looking, setting up little speed traps and certain things like that, DUI checkpoints, the so-called meter quota. All right, why would they have to struggle to meet a quota if there was actual crime going on out there, man? Man, we got to write so many, so on and so forth tickets, man. Because, you live in a small town, you only got a small population. People ain't really speeding and nothing else like that. So, I mean, hey, you're not really writing that many tickets, meaning you're not bringing in that much revenue, meaning you shooting your own self in the foot when it comes to not financing, but, bringing in revenue to pay your own bills. So you need this here thing to keep going. All right. It says, yea, also because he transgresses by wine, he is a proud man and neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire as hell, and as his death cannot be satisfied. but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. And the reason that he do all these things is for what? To extract the resources from these nations, man. All right, now they go over. Let's go to Isaiah 14 real quick. They go over to these nations. All right, Isaiah 14 and 9. It says, hell from beneath is moved for to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. So, it's something that they specialize in, which is called regime change. All right. So they'll go over to these nations, overthrow these governments, set up their own puppet governments and things like that for the sole reason of what? Extracting resources. How do you say, advancing military bases or putting military bases in these places, to so-called expand the American empire. All right. If you go and you look up a map of American bases, U.S. bases around the world, and then you combine that with NATO bases around the world, and understand that America, like the scriptures say, the horde that rideth upon the beast. All right, America's the one that's controlling NATO, man, sitting on top of their throne, and these NATO countries and NATO military bases are more or less like vassal states for America. All right, but in order to feed that, just like in the Roman Empire, they got to keep going out and just keep waging war with other people, man, and pillaging all their stuff to feed their military, to feed the beast, more or less to say. All right. It says Habakkuk 2 and 6. Shall not all these take up a parable against thee, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, and how long to him that ladeth himself with thick clay? All right, let's go and read that in NLT, because I just made the statement about how you have to feed the beast, right? It says, but soon their captives will taunt them. They will mock them, saying, what sorrow await you thieves? Now you will get what you deserve. You've become rich by extortion. And how much longer can this go on? All right. And so, hey, they have to go in and keep plundering all these different nations to, basically uphold their system. And again, this is the reason they need this military industrial complex to keep going on. Again, think about it like, you had police that setting up these roadblocks and stuff. Hey, you was doing 2 miles over the speed limit. You got a tag light out, your car is, not up to par or something like that. Coming up with all kind of little small things. Oh, you slightly drove over the yellow line. You didn't slow down fast enough in a certain amount of feet. We gotta have to write you these tickets, all kind of bogus tickets, just to do what? Raise revenue. Just to do what? To make sure that they have, backing or financing, so they'll have a so-called need to be there. All right. I've seen little towns and stuff like that where they had like one sheriff and like 2 deputies. All right, but this was a town that only had like one red light. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that big of a town, but even at certain points of times, well, before they had it was actually just one sheriff and no deputies, but then they expanded to having a sheriff and like 2 deputies. But then I believe they even got a police department now. But after that fact, you know what I'm saying, after they grew to that big, you know what I'm saying, the population of the town didn't really grow that much, but they got this police department and stuff like that. But then guess what? All the time you see road, like damn near every weekend there's a roadblock. All the time there's a little checkpoint. You know what I'm saying? You always got like, bro, crime ain't even popping like this out here, man. Everybody know everybody. Like, you got a problem with somebody. This is one of those towns where, like, if the police is looking for your ass, they'll call you out at the house and then, tell you to come turn yourself in, man. Or they even might roll up to your house in the morning while you over there eating breakfast and let you know, hey, man, we looking for you. Whenever you get done with breakfast or whenever you got time, we need you to come on down to the station. One of those type of towns. So the crime ain't really, popping like that out there, man. But hey, in order to pay this new police department, where you gonna get the funds from? All right, y'all ain't really arrested, making no arrests, writing no tickets. You're not bringing in no type of revenue. So hey, you got to create revenue for these things, man. All right. It says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and taunt and proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, and how long to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. All right, that thick debt. You've grown so big, now you have to keep going and so-called feed this here beast. All right. It says, suddenly they shall not, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booty unto them. All right. And this is what you're going to ultimately have happen, man. These nations are going to get tired of you, how do we say, hijacking their resources and invading their countries. Not necessarily saying about invading their countries with these tanks and everything, but hey, overthrowing governments, setting up your own leaders and everything else like that. Look at what you got going on in Ukraine, man. All right, now forget about Zelensky, because this is a paid off agent by them. But just imagine, ask them Ukrainian people how they feel about the war that's going on with them, man. All right, hey, ask Europe how they feel about this here war that's going on. See, now the Europeans, right, they're not saying over here, oh, to hell with Russia. Russia's bad. Russia, 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 Russia. No, they saying we need to get up out of NATO. You know, you got the civilians saying we got to get up out of NATO because it's America's fault that we over here. Russia ain't really the boogeyman. Russia ain't the bad guy. Russia was supplying us. Now you think about now if you could really hear the voices of these Ukrainian people, because there was these Ukrainian people tired of getting bombed and everything. Well, if you would understand the reason why those things is happening, because they had their country hijacked, and you got them sending weapons and arms over into this here country to steal their resources that they're not going to benefit off of. All right, go ask the people in the Middle East. All right, you know, ask the folks in Iraq if they would rather live how they living now, or if they would rather live under Saddam. They'll tell you we would rather live under Saddam. We didn't have terrorists and all these people running over our country and bombing the shit out of our country like how y'all did when y'all came over here. All right, Afghanistan and everything. Look who back in control over Afghanistan. The same people that they went over there to fight against. But look, you had all that war-torn stuff going on over there, and then you got an opioid crisis over here. All right. Verse 8, because thou hast spoiled, let me read this in the NLT. It says, verse 8, because you have plundered many nations. All right. And again, that's going into that stealing of the resources. Because you have plundered many nations, all this, the survivors will plunder you. You've committed murder throughout the countryside and filled the towns with violence. All right. And so, hey, this is what you have happen. All right. You know, every time America go into these different nations, they just death and hell follows them, like the scriptures say, man. But they need this to even with the whole ISIS situation, they had to go over there and create them in these different areas. Like you look at what happened in Syria, trying to overthrow the government, but instead of just going full force in on the government and having a country versus country war, because Russia backed them, what do? We'll drop off some terrorists over here, all right, and then say we over here bombing at the terrorists. The terrorists just happen to be standing near your infrastructure. So now we got to, you know what I'm saying? That's just some collateral damage, all right? And then what? They'll go in and try to resupply them, all right, or rebuild them up under their contracts. Look at what happened in the Middle East, Afghanistan and all that, Iraq, you know, with Halliburton and KBR and everything else like that. They blew up every damn thing, went over there and tried to rebuild everything and make the money up off of those things, man. Sent they no big contractors over there, all right. But hey, this is all not to say a money laundering situation, but a situation to just keep raising capital, man. All right, we're gonna go over here and burn it down just to rebuild it, just to burn it down, just to rebuild it, man. All right, we need this here, so-called boogeyman to keep fighting, just to keep the wheels turning with this military-industrial complex, man. All right, but ultimately, we'll close out with this. Ultimately, it's gonna bring you to your own demise, man. All right, Job 18:7. It says, the steps of his strength shall be straightened, and his own counsel shall bring him down. All right, their own schemes shall be their downfall. It says, for he is cast into a net by his own feet and walketh upon a snare. The gin shall take him by the heel, and the robber shall prevail against him. The snare is laid for him in the ground, and a trap for him in the way. Terror shall make him afraid on every side, and shall drive him to his feet. All right, and ultimately, when all your allies decide to turn on you, all right, his strength shall be hunger bitten, and destruction shall be ready at his side. It shall devour the strength of his skin. Even the firstborn of death shall devour his strength. His confidence shall be rooted out of his tabernacle, or shall bring him to the king of terrors. It shall dwell in his tabernacle, because it is none of his. Brimstone shall be scattered upon his habitation. So, it's going to bring him to the king of terrors. And when Russia or all these other nations led by Russia decide to shoot them nukes on him, man, that's when that brimstone going to rain down on him, man. This is going to be your end-all, be-all demise, man. All right, because, just like Russia been saying, man, with the fall of USSR, look, we'll disband if y'all promise never to move an inch closer to the east. But what have they been doing ever since then, man? Now they got nations up on their borders trying to put, missile defense systems on their borders, set nukes up on their borders. All right, get, ex-Russian, basically ex-Russian states or countries, you could say, to join up with NATO, man. All right, to surround Russia. All right, to eventually wage war against them, man. All right, now you ask yourself, what would happen if America succeeded with Russia, China, Iran, all these different places? What would they do then? All right, guess what? They would just go to war with themselves, man. All right, but hey, this is part of what the damn devil does, man. Like the scripture say, he's never satisfied, man. All right, like death and hell, he ain't never satisfied. He just wants more and more and more and more. All right, but I'm gonna go ahead and close out with that. Lord will and the elect was satisfied with this here, or Lord's will, the elect was edified with this here lesson. Until next time, I say, call halal, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushua, Bahashim, Rukakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone that taught us this truth and never will. And salutation and much love for you, Aki, and pushing this truth and sincerity over the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. Until next time, I say, stay strong. Shalom.